locker a little bit earlier than expected. Not body, but just guts. So hopefully my guts settle. Just past the old trout farm. This is where we had to duck back down towards the Murray Bridge. The heat has not subsided and the breeze is nowhere to be seen. 6 o'clock, 42 kilometres in. Just about to tick over a marathon. Happy days. Happy days. Mate, we are pretty much at the top of Maher's Hill. We are 45 minutes to an hour behind schedule. We've been going for 7 hours, 15 minutes, 48.4 kilometres in. Sort of give us a bit of insights to your service life, how many years you're in, what you did, what you took away from, your highlights and that sort of stuff. Your transition, what brought that on, out of defence, time in the police force, been through some cancer treatment. And if you're in a position to share it, mate, then please do. If not, we can always circle back and make yourself comfortable and talk shit.
Yeah, so my name's Will. Served for 12 years, from 2008 to 2019 as a fitter in Ramey. Predominantly served up in Townsville for the first couple of years. Started at B Squadron 3-4 Cav, while it was still B Squadron 3-4 Cav after I finished my OJT time. Excellent unit, tiny little unit, only company size, but really good team there. From there, posted to 3 CSR for 3 years. Really good workshop there as well. Working with SIGs wasn't the most enjoyable experience as in terms of being a fitter. The work wasn't the most rewarding, but it was a good workshop environment. And then from 3 CSR posted down to Sydney. At the end of 2019, at the end of my posting there, I transitioned out. Predominantly to just provide stability for the kids as they were getting towards high school age. I'd always said to the wife that when we hit high school age for the kids, I'd transition out so kids could stay in the same school, same education system, not be bouncing around the country with that sort of inconsistency. VicPol were doing a recruiting drive at the time. It's something I'd always thought about doing. The stars aligned, I guess, at the time, so I made that transition out. Transitioning to police was an interesting experience, particularly mostly due to the timing. As I transitioned out, I think the 3rd week at the academy, COVID hit. So there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether training would continue, whether we'd be just sent home for 6 months, 8 months, a year. Who knew what was going to happen? But as it stood, training continued and all that sort of thing. Finished up at the academy and then posted into a unit. Started off in Oakley for a little bit and then into the city.
Any commonalities between what you're able to take away from defence and police force?
You work very closely with the people that you're posted with. It is the same in a lot of ways. I was lucky enough, worked with some really good people, had a couple of ex-ARA guys on my course at the academy, which helps sort of keep you grounded. There's a lot of, removed a lot of the difficulties of transitioning out of defence, I think, when you have people around you who've just done the same thing as well. You make the transition out. There's still the same sort of factors with discipline, with uniformity, training and all those sort of things. So it made for a smoother transition, I guess, than going from defence to another civvy job or something like that. Yeah, so a lot of commonalities in terms of the comradeship, particularly in smaller stations. From Melbourne, posted up to Benalla. Small station, completely different environment and that sort of thing. Focus changes from public order policing to community policing, so to speak. A lot more. Moved from public order, dealing with the protests that were going on in the town at the time, which we got stuck in the middle of for a couple of.
Yep.
Moved from that to going up to the country to dealing with family violence.
Right.
Predominantly is the main thrust of what you dealt with.
Hmm.
From there, I probably didn't manage it well enough to start with, but towards the end of time, I was about at Benalla for about a year, and my mental health started to take a real turn. It was probably a combination of factors. I probably rolling out of defence straight into that environment, into COVID and stuff like that. I didn't give myself enough.
So no decompression?
Nah, no decompression at all. Straight from one relatively high tempo environment, working at 2, into what was an up and down high tempo environment, shift work. Obviously, protest, being a copper at that particular time was, they're not necessarily the most popular people at the best of times, let alone going through COVID.
How long were you in police?
3 years.
And what was the transition like out of that? Your
Your
terms?
Yeah, my terms for the most part. I and partially the wife's terms to a certain degree.
Okay.
I was becoming not a particularly nice person to be around when I was at home, at the rare times where I was home where things lined it up with the kids and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I wasn't really home. I wasn't particularly nice to be around. I was probably drinking heavily and all that sort of thing. So I just wasn't a nice person to be around. I was probably, Katie would be able to tell you more, but very, very abrupt, quick to snap, quick to anger.
Okay. So reflecting on that, how are you travelling now?
Certainly better. I like to think better.
Yep. Is that environment, job? Obviously,
pause. I think pause for. Funnily enough, the cancer treatment changes your perspective on life. It's not to say that mental health is perfect or anything like that. I'm not still quick to anger or any of those sorts of things, but you change your perspective on what's important.
Okay.
Happy that I'd transitioned out of police. I miss policing and defence as a whole. Like, you miss the job satisfaction that came with it.
Yep.
The times where you actually felt like you helped people.
Serving,
yeah, 100%.
Whether you're serving just in your day job, in the ADF, or I'm sure it's the same as police. You feel like you've got a sense of purpose and you're contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And when you've done that for 15, 20 years of your life, transitioning away from that sense of purpose is what I've found the most difficult, leaving those two behind and going and doing the APS. I mean, it still exists to a certain degree, but it's certainly not the same.
So you we went through trade school together.
Yeah, yep.
So more or less. And then we were sort of reacquainted through the RSL. So it was back through, you and Cowboy, Maher catching up on Friday. Yep. How did that eventuate?
I think I was still a copper at the time, so maybe late 22 and something like that into the start of 23.
Yep.
Hadn't really had anything to do with the RSL prior to that in any major shape or form, be it Wodonga, Melbourne, Townsville, any of the particular clubs, having not deployed overseas. A self-imposed stigma that the service is.
Yep.
What I did was less deserving, if that makes sense.
I think we need to get over that. It's a generation
we
thing,
do.
And self-imposed is 100%.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm learning, and Jamie's helping me with that. And we've got an obligation to do our bit.
Yeah.
We control that message because it's us. We're the serving generation now.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to whether you've transitioned or currently serving.
Yeah, and look, the atmosphere around Wodonga RSL in particular is far more accepting of a younger generation
Yep.
of digger than I've seen in most RSLs.
Yep.
The fact that it's actually drawn the younger generation in as opposed to pushing them out says loads for the lads who are running it and what they're doing, Jamie and Sean and Mitch and all the team down there. It says bloody loads for the way they're running the club.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. We can have a yarn on the downhill.
Yep.
So when diagnosis, how that sort of impacted what you were doing at the time, and how that influenced any decisions that were made.
Yeah, so I was actually I was already working at JLU at the time, so that didn't change anything. It's funny, I had started having issues with me gut just before I started transitioning out of defence, so started having some gut pains about the end of 2019, but no major symptoms or anything like that.
Yep.
And went and saw a doctor when I got down to Melbourne and all that sort of thing. But they couldn't find anything, put it down to stress and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
And it sort of went on like that for a couple of years. And then found a new GP, changed GP. We just moved house at the end of October 2023. Went and saw the GP with a little bit of fatigue and a little bit of weight loss, but nothing out of the blue.
Yep.
Did some bloods and found my iron levels were through the floor. Then a CT scan, quickly followed by colonoscopy. And then to be told I had a 55mm tumour in the large bowel. From there to surgery was 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, so almost didn't have... Skipped through a bit of the grief cycle, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Didn't really have time to think about it. Went from being diagnosed to on the table within, I think a 3-week period.
So here, living in Barranduda.
Yeah, down in Wodonga. So we just bought a place in West Wodonga.
Yep.
I
don't know
funnily
why
enough,
you live in Barranduda.
that's all right.
Cowboys are...
Funnily enough, Katie broke her foot on Boxing Day taking the dog for a walk. So she was in a moon boot, couldn't drive. I was in hospital from the 2nd of January.
Yep.
We were super lucky that we had Cowboy local because he brought Katie to and from the hospital and all that sort of stuff.
Yep. And that goes back to that network, right?
100%.
So we go through these times and it's like, well, who have I got?
100%.
Who have I got to lean on? From a family as well.
And you know, people like that, were a driving reason behind why we decided to resettle in Wodonga, because knowing that network, even at a transient level, you know, people who are coming and going and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It makes a world of difference, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, from there, I was in hospital for a week and a half, 2 weeks, due to an infection that made me crook as 10 crook things. And once that was all dealt with, I started chemo.
Yep.
I consider myself lucky. My body handled the chemo pretty well. And for the most part, I was able to keep cracking on with life as normal.
Yep.
At least for the first probably 8 out of 12 treatments. And then the fatigue and your body sort of starts to wear down a little bit. So I kept working through all of that just because I felt the need to maintain some semblance of a routine.
Yep.
Sitting at home on the couch when I had the capacity to be still out and doing things didn't make any sense.
Yep.
Sitting there, and you can have too much time to dwell on things or feel sorry for yourself, or
Yep.
let the demons tend to take over a little bit.
How are you travelling now?
Pretty good now.
Chemo still?
Nah, no chemo now. Did my last lot of bloods in January. Got another one in April.
Yep.
The body's still not 100%.
Yep.
Probably won't ever be again, to be honest, but
Yep.
we just keep doing little bits and pieces.
Yep.
Trying to get that strength back. Got a hernia that needs to get rid of. But yeah, feeling all right. But like I said, the mental health, funnily enough, was almost better.
Yep.
Because of, or in spite of the diagnosis.
In spite.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Because it forces you to change perspective on what's important, what you can and can't control.
Yep.
You know, I've got no control over the fact that I got the cancer.
Yep.
But I can control how I respond to it.
Yep.
How it makes me feel.
Is there counselling around that sort of stuff?
Did a little bit of counselling around it, and it's certainly available.
Yep.
Super lucky here on the border to have the Albury, the Border Cancer Centre over attached to the Albury Base Hospital.
Yep.
Truly outstanding facility staffed with good people.
Yep.
Who I can't say a bad thing about personally. So,
Mate, well, fuck.
yeah, look,
Appreciate you giving us those insights, man. I know the circumstances around this run and everything. I wanted to include you. You know, you've given me the time of day over the years.
Yeah.
And seeing you again at the RSL and knowing you're back in the area. Well, I'm
Yeah.
back in the area. This is your fucking home. So I appreciate you coming up here and having a yarn and telling us about some personal details, and I understand that they can bring back some troubling times.
yeah.
And, I appreciate it, mate. And I'll
No, I
put this
appreciate.
together as best as I can to share your story. And
All right, mate. I appreciate being included. You know.